Before getting into the breakdown, here's a quick recap of what this episode and this analysis are about. Fallout Season 2, Episode 4, titled The Demon in the Snow, is the moment the Brotherhood of Steel finally implodes under the weight of its own ideology. This video explains why Maximus's plan to kill Elder Cleric Quintus was doomed from the start, why faking Paladin Xander's survival was a desperate delay rather than a solution, why Dane steals the cold fusion relic, and why the Brotherhood's civil war was not caused by betrayal or theft, but by an institutional refusal to adapt.
I killed Xander because he was gonna kill some kids.
Now let's talk about why The Demon in the Snow is one of the most important episodes Fallout has ever produced, and why everything after this point exists in its shadow. The most dangerous thing about Episode 4 isn't the violence. It's the silence before it. By the time Knight Ignatius arrives looking for Maximus and Paladin Xander, the Brotherhood of Steel is already functionally dead. It just hasn't accepted it yet. The hierarchy still exists on paper, ranks are still being saluted, and rituals are still being performed, but the belief that once animated those structures is gone. This episode doesn't depict the fall of the Brotherhood. It depicts the moment everyone involved realizes that the fall already happened, and they've just been standing in the ruins pretending otherwise. Ignatius's search for Maximus and Xander seems procedural, but Maximus immediately understands the existential danger behind it. The Brotherhood does not tolerate unexplained deviation, not because it's inefficient, but because deviation threatens the illusion of total control. Xander isn't just a paladin. He's a stabilizing symbol. His authority reassures the rank and file that the chain of command still works. His death wouldn't simply remove a leader. It would create a vacuum where competing interpretations of doctrine rush in to fill the space. And that's before the real danger even surfaces. Xander's death risks exposing the Brotherhood's most unforgivable contradiction: the protection of normal children and ghoul children under its watch. This is not a policy dispute within the Brotherhood. It's heresy.
They were ghouls.
The Brotherhood's worldview is built on rigid categorization: pure versus corrupted, human versus other, controllable versus expendable. If that secret becomes public, it doesn't lead to debate or reform. It leads to slaughter. Maximus understands this not as theory, but as lived experience. He was raised inside a system where mercy is framed as weakness and compassion is treated as contamination. So Maximus does something that perfectly captures the tragedy of his position. To prevent immediate catastrophe, he lies. He tells Thaddeus to wear Paladin Xander's power armor and pretend to be him. On the surface, this plan borders on absurdity. Thaddeus is visibly uncomfortable, hesitant, and completely unconvincing as Xander. His posture is wrong. His presence lacks authority. Anyone who truly knew Xander would sense the difference instantly. But the Brotherhood doesn't operate on personal recognition anymore. It operates on symbols. Rank, armor, and ritual have replaced human judgment. As long as the visor stays down, the illusion holds. This is not because the Brotherhood is stupid. It's because it is willfully blind. That distinction matters. The Brotherhood doesn't fail to notice inconsistencies because it can't see them. It ignores them because acknowledging uncertainty would destabilize the power structures it depends on. If Paladin Xander might be dead, then authority itself becomes negotiable, and the Brotherhood cannot survive negotiation. It survives obedience. When Maximus returns to base with Ignatius and the fake Xander, the atmosphere shifts immediately. Dane confronts Maximus, and this scene quietly reveals how far Maximus has already drifted from Brotherhood doctrine. He doesn't lie. He doesn't deflect. He tells Dane the truth outright. Xander is dead, and Quintus is next. That confession alone is enough to destroy most alliances, but Maximus goes further. He tells Dane to take the rookies, the youngest, least indoctrinated members of the Brotherhood, and hide them somewhere safe. Not the soldiers, the children. This decision is the clearest proof that Maximus is no longer operating within Brotherhood logic. In Brotherhood culture, rookies are expendable resources meant to be shaped or discarded. To Maximus, they are lives that still have a chance to exist outside the machine. He knows what's coming. Once violence erupts, ideology will replace reason, and anyone without rank or armor will be crushed first. Dane listens, not out of blind loyalty, but because Dane has already reached the same conclusion. Earlier in the season, Dane warned Maximus that Elder Cleric Quintus was breaking the chain of command, consolidating authority, and steering the Brotherhood toward internal conflict. Dane understands that the Brotherhood isn't facing an external threat, it's facing ideological fragmentation that its leadership refuses to acknowledge. While Dane evacuates the rookies, the Brotherhood's political theater continues as if nothing is wrong. In the cafeteria, Thaddeus, still masquerading as Xander, is approached by elders from the Yosemite and Coronado chapters. This interaction is crucial because it exposes the Brotherhood's decay at the highest level. These elders aren't here to reaffirm unity or express concern. They're here to position themselves advantageously. They believe they're appeasing Xander to stay in the Commonwealth's good graces and avoid being crushed by Quintus later. What makes this moment so revealing is that the elders sense instability, but instead of addressing it, they try to game it. They choose denial because denial preserves short-term power. Acknowledging the truth would force them to act, and action carries risk, so they negotiate with a symbol rather than confront reality. This is how institutions die. Not through ignorance, but through self-preserving cowardice. The episode then moves into its most psychologically revealing scene, Maximus confronting Elder Cleric Quintus in private. This is not a heroic showdown, it's an execution that fails before it begins. Maximus enters Quintus's chambers and immediately establishes the stakes. He admits to killing Xander. He admits he's there to kill Quintus. There is no moral sermon, no attempt to justify himself ideologically. Maximus isn't trying to reform the Brotherhood. He's trying to stop something worse. Quintus responds exactly as a true authoritarian always does. Not with fear, but with narrative control. He reframes himself as a father figure, reminding Maximus that he raised him, shaped him, gave him purpose. He speaks about civilization, about the Brotherhood as a last defense against chaos, and about how Maximus's actions threaten the survival of humanity itself. For a moment, Quintus appears open-minded. He listens. He allows Maximus to explain what happened with Xander. But this isn't empathy. It's assessment. Quintus is evaluating whether Maximus can still be reintegrated into the system or whether he must be eliminated. The turning point comes when Maximus reveals why he killed Xander. He did it to protect ghoul children. This is not the moment Quintus snaps. This is the moment Quintus confirms what he already suspected. In his worldview, protecting ghouls isn't a tragic necessity or a moral gray area. It's proof of ideological corruption. At that instant, Maximus ceases to be a misguided subordinate and becomes an existential threat to Brotherhood purity. Quintus attacks without hesitation. This is why Maximus's plan was always doomed. Not because it was poorly conceived, but because it relied on the assumption that Quintus was capable of moral compromise. Quintus isn't a leader balancing difficult choices. He's a zealot enforcing a belief system that cannot tolerate deviation. Maximus survives by fleeing. He locks Quintus in his chambers and escapes. Not victorious, not vindicated, just alive. This incomplete outcome is critical. Maximus does not overthrow the tyrant. He does not expose him publicly. He merely removes himself from immediate annihilation. In Fallout's moral universe, survival itself becomes an act of rebellion. The consequences are immediate and catastrophic. Word spreads that the cold fusion relic, the most valuable technological asset in the wasteland, is missing. The Brotherhood's already fractured chapters turn on one another. This isn't spontaneous chaos. It's pressure finally being released after years of ideological strain. And here's the crucial revelation. Maximus did not steal the relic. Dane did. This decision reframes the entire episode. Dane stealing the cold fusion catalyst is not an act of desperation, it's an act of strategic denial. Dane understands something the elders and Quintus do not. The relic is not salvation. It is a curse. In Fallout's narrative tradition, ultra-powerful technology never redeems humanity. It exposes its worst instincts. Earlier in the season, Dane warned that Quintus's consolidation of power would lead to war. With the cold fusion relic, Quintus would no longer need consensus, loyalty, or legitimacy. Limitless energy would make him untouchable. The Brotherhood would not be preserved. It would be frozen under authoritarian rule. By stealing the relic, Dane removes the possibility of absolute control entirely. They hand it to Maximus and tell him to run. Take it as far away from Area 51 as possible. This is not about choosing a side. It's about ensuring no one wins. Dane understands that uncertainty, as dangerous as it is is still preferable to dictatorship. This is the precise moment the Brotherhood's civil war becomes inevitable. With the relic gone, the Brotherhood loses its final unifying force. No shared mission remains, only paranoia and pride. Chapters accuse one another. Doctrine becomes weaponized. Violence replaces hierarchy. The Brotherhood, an institution obsessed with order, collapses because it never learned how to survive disagreement. Maximus escapes into the desert with Thaddeus, who continues wearing Xander's armor just long enough to draw fire and confusion away from the real target. It's awkward, desperate, and deeply human. And it works. The episode ends without resolution. We don't know who survives the internal war. We don't know which chapter, if any, emerges dominant. And we don't know what Maximus will ultimately do with the cold fusion relic. But the thematic implication is clear. Maximus does not want to rule. He wants to build something that the Brotherhood never could. The possibility that he might return to Shady Sands and use the relic to create a place where humans and ghouls coexist directly challenges everything the Brotherhood stands for. And that's why the Brotherhood's civil war didn't begin with theft, betrayal, or murder. It began the moment an institution built on fear ran out of enemies to blame and was forced to confront its own reflection. The demon in the snow isn't about who wins. It's about what happens when ideology refuses to evolve. And once that truth is exposed, no amount of power armor can hide the collapse underneath.